Gonzaga gets a copy of this biography of Mary Ward. She really responds to Mary Ward's way of writing, her spirituality, her great emphasis on freedom and justice, and also her conviction that women would do great things. And here's Gonzaga, absolutely opens her up in an extraordinary way. And boy, was she determined to do great things, and she did.
Thursday, May 20th, 1875. The last Mass in the Abbey was, it is said, the saddest and most lonely scene in the whole journey. The 9 poor emigrants in the large church.
It was the night before she left Rathfarnham, and the nuns were all gathered in the convent there, and I'm sure there was a great atmosphere of excitement and anticipation and perhaps fear amongst that group of women who were leaving. And somebody said to Gonzaga, "How are you feeling?" And she held out her hands and she said, "My hands are in God's hands. He can lead me where he wills." And I think that gave her the courage to leave everything she knew and everything she loved and go across the other side of the world.
Many a tearful eye looked after the cabs as they drove down the avenue. The children were in the dormitory windows waving handkerchiefs. Whilst saying the litany of Our Blessed Mother, we lost sight of Loreto, probably forever.
They left Ireland in May of 1875, and there were 10 of them. So there were Mother Gonzaga, and there were 2 postulants, and the rest were professed sisters. And they were all local Dublin girls, and they'd gone to Loreto schools, and they'd entered when they were 17, 18. So they were so unworldly.
Gravesend. We went down on a kind of wharf with quantities of small boats at each side. The boatmen all stretching out their hands and crying out to us to let them take us to the Somersetshire. I got into the nearest boat and was about to sit down when I was politely informed that I should step onto the farthest off boat. So we had to cross them all, and stepping with the aid of a railing of sailors' hands to the ladder.
Apparently they had to balance across several little boats to actually get to the ship that must have been parked out further into the harbour.
I should observe that in all these transitions from the porch at Rathfarnham to this moment, we were accompanied by 2 flower pots, one containing an Irish yew and the other arbor, I think it was.
And they brought them all the way across the sea to Melbourne and then to Ballarat. And for her, planting those plants which had survived that long, long journey, as they had, and putting down roots there, I think that would have been very significant for her.
I'm sure all our sisters thought of Ireland and the loved ones there. We said together the Litany of Loreto, a prayer to St. Joseph, and recommending ourselves to the Sacred Heart and the holy angels, whom we begged to accompany us on our way, we steered quietly out of Plymouth Harbour.
You think of Ireland and that lovely mist, and even though there's the cold, the fresh air, they would have gone from that to a very stuffy, very crowded, cramped environment where people were sick, where they were feeling sick. The food would not have been particularly good. And what's it going to be like when we get to this foreign country?
Tuesday, May 25th. After a very sick night, found it very hard to rise and dress, but accomplished the task in course of time, got on deck rolled up in shawls and sat there in a state of endurance. Sick in the morning, sick during the day and sick at night, and no inclination for writing my diary.
She had extraordinary courage and fortitude, and I think she had felicity, which was one of the values, that sense of joy of life and celebrating the good things.
Captain Burton remonstrated with Father Carey on the necessity of our taking a little champagne as a cure for the seasickness, and offered some in such a nice way that we could not refuse.
It would have been physically a very scary thing to do. Gonzaga talks about the fact that there's a ship come in and 2 people have died on board. It was known that, they were rough passages, they were rough times.
Monday, June 7th. Passed the night in a vapour bath. Felt sometimes so sinking into the other world that I calculated the probable effect on my cabin companions when they should find me in the morning. Gone.
And she says, "I suppose no one will ever know what it cost me to leave Ireland and my Irish friends. It nearly broke my heart." Though I was told by superiors I would not be sent against my will, I felt I had to do it or be unfaithful to grace. And I think you've got it there in a nutshell, why she did it.
Friday, July 9th. Beautiful day, sea calmer, so that we could all have a nice walk on deck. Mrs. Backhouse took a few rounds with us. She told me we have quite upset all the saloon passengers' previous ideas about nuns and even her own. She thought we would be very austere, melancholy creatures, who really accepted of conventual life as a kind of last resource from the sorrows and disappointments of the world.
And really what drove her for the next 40 years when she's running around, she's travelling from the length and breadth of Australia, founding schools, founding boarding schools, day schools, primary schools, running parish schools, setting up teachers' training colleges, doing all of that stuff. Amazing, just an amazing woman.
She was a great organiser, and I think she probably had a great intellect as well.
It's women like her that make a difference.
I think she could run the National Bank today, or any one of the banks, if she was in this world.
Yeah, she obviously made people fall in love with her.
Monday, July 19th. Last night we were awakened by the ship stopping and great cheering of the crew for the pilot who came on board. The night was so bright with moonlight. When we woke in the morning, we were safe at Sandridge Pier and crowds of beautiful ships round us. The officer of health came on board. Our doctor gave a favourable account of the health of the passengers and crew. All were indeed, thank God, well.
Just an extraordinary woman, and I think she's a woman that has been neglected in Australian history. She really stands up there with Mary MacKillop, with Caroline Chisholm, in fact, in her great achievements, her impact on education, but not just her impact on education, her showing that what women can do in the constraints of the church at that time and society at that time.